What's up, y'all? Back at it again. On today's video, I got my friend's I think it's a 94 or 95 Chevrolet Camaro with the LT1 350 in it. And he's having stalling issues and starting issues. So we're figuring from the research we did, it's the optispark distributor on the front of the engine, right behind the water pump. So yeah, I already got myself out here. All I've taken off so far was the radiator support bracket and the air intake over here. And that's it. Go ahead and jack the car up and we're gonna get that antifreeze out. I got the radiator cap cracked open. All right, time to go under. All right, we're gonna crack this little valve here on the radiator. This way we can get the coolant out. There it goes. I think I'm also gonna be removing the coolant fans as well. This way I have a little extra room to work with. Take out the plug on this fan and this fan here. And I think this just pulls straight up after that. I don't think it's, yeah, it's already loose actually. So I gotta get all these coolant lines off of the water pump itself, and it seems like there's a few of them here. Like this one here on the top, and you got thermostat, the other one, and there's two other, that one there, and then another one right there. Alright, we got the fan assembly out, which came out easier from under the car than trying to pull it out from the top of the car. Yeah, nothing really holds it in except for this bracket here. Kind of just interlocks into it by sliding it down into these little clips right there. Alright, well, we got that extra room now. Get that fan out of the way. The water pump looks like it's got 6 bolts in it. There's one there, one right here, and then there's another one right here under this piece. And there's 3 matching ones, same spots on this side as well. Got to say though, that is the coolest looking water pump I've ever seen in my life. Alright, we got those 6 water pump bolts out. I set the 3 that came on this side over here and then put the other 3 on that side. This way I kept it separated. This way they go back in the same spots. And that's it. There's your water pump. That was actually super easy to take out. Alright, so there's this little sleeve here that connects, I guess that's the camshaft to the water pump. So I'm going to slide this back on the other side of the water pump. This way we don't lose that. So the next step, we got to get the serpentine belt off. So I got to get me a 15 millimeter, I'm guessing. It's usually what they are on this tensioner pulley. And after that, we got to take these 3 bolts out of the crank there, the harmonic balancer. Nope, it was a 13. So the way I got these crank bolts cracked free, I just took a tire iron, slid it in between the little slot on the crank, so it pivoted off of the bottom end of the engine there. And yep, they all came cracked loose, really easy. All right, now it's time to take off the optispark. So before we take this optispark off, from what I seen online, you want to label these spark plug wires. This way it'll be easier when you put it back together. But luckily, this set of spark plug wires was already numbered. They have numbers on each one, so it makes it super simple for me. So I'm just gonna grab me a pen and a piece of paper and then write the order that they go down in. Just gonna do that on both sides. This way I know which one starts at the top and then goes to the bottom. Simple as that. That was the numbers on each wire, and I just made a little diagram so I know how to put it back together. Take it off. Looks like, is this the bolt there? Another one here, but it's missing. It's not there. Yeah, one down here and one down there. So it seems like there's 4, but we can look at the new one just to make sure. The new one here, it looks like there's only 3 holding it on. There, and there. So there's actually only 2 holding it on because one's missing on there. All right, so when you're also attempting to take this off, I just noticed the crank here is sitting upwards, this one tab. So you might want to make sure that tab is leveled out. This way it doesn't block you from sliding off the distributor optispark. But ain't nothing this crescent wrench couldn't handle. So there was one here, one bolt there that was missing, and then the one down under here, and that's it. So, oh, and I gotta take this little wire off. overlooked. And bam, there it is. Oh geez, look at that seal. Whoever put this in really butchered that seal up when they put it on. So I'm guessing this thing was replaced already, because it doesn't look that old except for all the grease on it. But that's also could have been its downfall from what I've seen online. If you have your camshaft seal leaking, and your crankshaft seal leaking, and your distributor seal leaking, the oil can get in here and mess it up and have it malfunction on you. Now we're hoping that optispark is the problem. He already changed the ICM, the ignition control module. You can see that looks like it's brand new. So yeah, but yeah, it definitely looks like this seal was changed for the pin for the distributor, because it's not leaking in here at all. I don't see any kind of heavy drippage or anything, but this one's definitely leaking, and that crank seal down there is definitely leaking. So I got to talk to my buddy. We might just I know you can change these seals without taking the cover off. So to crack this bolt free on the crankshaft, to get the harmonic balancer bracket off, I pretty much just screwed back in 2 of the bolts for the harmonic balancer. I'm using this tire iron here, and we're just going to put it in between the 2 bolts, slide our wrench, socket wrench in here, and then I got a breaker bar hooked to my socket wrench to give me some leverage. And yeah, this way the crank don't turn and you can crack it free easily. So I got me a little scraper here with a razor blade in it so we can scrape off the water pump gaskets. And I got me a coffee can here with a little bit of gas on the bottom and a parts wash brush so we can go ahead and clean up the timing cover. And I also put some cardboard down on the ground there. This way when I'm cleaning up the timing cover, all the little bits of debris and oil and gas fall onto the piece of cardboard down there, set on the driveway, just in case you're got a nice driveway or you're at a friend's house doing it in their driveway, you don't make a mess on them. Alrighty, we got them water pump gaskets all scraped off and that timing cover all cleaned up. Till tomorrow. Alright, we back at it again 2 days later. So went to the local auto parts store. I went and picked up the gasket seal kit, which came with the timing cover gasket, which we're not using, and the water pump gaskets, and the 3 shaft seals that we need. It's a Felpro set. There's the part number there. I think I paid $13 bucks for this set. It's pretty damn cheap. And then we also did the loaner tool deal where we got the master harmonic balancer puller / install kit, which it's kind of a pain in the butt to use this to actually get the harmonic balancer mount off of the shaft. It doesn't actually come with the bolts that you need to thread into the harmonic balancer mount on the shaft, and the bolts that you do need don't even fit into these slots on the puller tool itself. So I actually had to rig up a little setting using a couple parts out of here and going to the hardware store and getting the size bolts I actually need to get it off. So this is the contraption I set up. I'm actually using the harmonic balancer itself as the puller tool, and I used a few pieces out of that puller set to actually make this work. Now you can get this kit to actually work to take it off, but you'd have to use these smaller bolts they give you and then put nuts on the back end of it to hold it in there. The whole reason why I didn't want to do that because I was worried I'd mess up the threads for the bolt holes by doing that. So I just went and got the bigger bolts and then set it up the way I got it set up in there. So how I got it set up in here, I used that thrust bearing with the nut on it and the little square plate they give you in the puller / install kit, and the long bolt they also give you. And then I hooked up, I think that's 1 1/4 wrench on the bolt, and then I've cracked it free with the regular 3/4 wrench here. And now that I got it moving, I'm going to use my ratchet wrench to run it the rest of the way out. And it seems to be working perfectly. So I also got me a longer bolt that goes into the crankshaft itself to pivot the tool off of to actually push it out, so I didn't have to keep resetting the bolt that's in here, the original one, moving it out more and more and more. Hopefully this longer one I got's perfect and I can get the whole thing off in one shot. Definitely taking out the fan assembly helped tremendously. Gave me just that extra room to get this done. So this is pretty much what I did. I got this square plate on here. It's labeled as a thrust washer, square thrust washer. And then this is a bearing with a nut attached to it. So pretty much just put it together like this. Slid it in through here. And that was it. That's how I made all this work. So now how we're getting the shaft seals out, we're gonna drill a little hole inside of the seal itself on the edge of it, and we're gonna put a little screw in and then clamp the vice grip onto the screw and then use the pry bar here to pry it out. That's the way I seen somebody else do it online. I'm gonna try this technique. I never did it before, so let's give it a whirl. All right, we got the screw and the seal. We wanna be very careful while drilling that hole. So yeah, now we're gonna put our vice grips on here and then use this pry tool to pry it out. Bam. That's it. I'm pretty sure the only one we had to use that screw trick on to actually get the seal out was the camshaft, because once you got the harmonic balancer mount taken out, there's plenty of room to get a puller tool in here, and the same thing with the distributor. Also with this too, you want to be careful you don't scratch up, gouge up the casing. Yep, that came right out, super simple. And then same thing with the bottom one, comes right out with the puller tool. Awesome. All right, time to put these shaft seals on. One of the videos I watched, the guy in it explained how when you're putting the camshaft seal on, you have to be very careful you don't fold the inner lip outward, because then it won't seal right, which whoever installed this one on this car actually did that, and this is why this was leaking. I'm pretty sure all the oil was actually leaking from this seal. The other two seals, distributor seal and the crank seal, were actually fine. It was just this one leaking because it was installed wrong. So the way the guy explained how to install this seal is to get a Sharpie highlighter, because the seal actually fits perfect onto it, and then the Sharpie highlighter tapers down to getting bigger. So this way you can expand the seal over the shaft. And pretty much what you got to do, you got to cut this highlighter perfectly so you don't get it too, if you cut it too far down, it's going to be too small and you're not going to get this installed right. So you got to slide this over to where it just cups a little bit bigger over it, and then you have to push the seal all the way down until it pops over the shaft here, because if you get caught on this lip here, it's going to push that seal outward and then it's not going to seal right. Definitely a helpful hint to getting this done right. Then we take a socket and then we just tap her in. There we go. Alrighty then. These are the two optisparks. That's the old one. This is the new one we got. I'm pretty sure my buddy that I'm doing this job for, I think he paid around maybe $200 or a little bit more than that for this. Now this is the cheap one you get up from the local auto parts store. From what I seen online, they say you really should put the original one in from the manufacturer because it lasts a whole lot longer. These tend to not last as long, and yeah, they go out sooner than later. So, but keynote when you're installing the shaft in, like on this one, again, was installed improperly. If you look here, yeah, it's pretty tore up in there. When you install this, you're supposed to put this little shaft on this side first to make sure that it gets past the seal without butchering it up, which the guy must have inserted this into the engine first and then pushed this over it, and that's why it got all butched up like that. So that's what we're going to do on this new one. We're going to lube up the new gear piece here, and we're going to make sure it gets in here properly without butching up the seal. All right, we got the shaft in there nice and secure without butching up the seal. with these shafts with the splines on them. There is one spline on here that is double the size, so you can't mess up putting this on, and it's like that on both sides of the shaft. Both of the splines are like that. And this seal you don't have to worry about when you're pushing it in, because the flow of it goes towards the inside, so you're not going to mess this one up or fold it back or anything because of the way it's set up. Got the distributor seal inserted. Now this seal was so easy to put in, I just pressed it in with my thumbs. I actually slid under the car feet first and then pressed it in where it was just reset literally a hair. It actually won't go all the way in, I'm pretty sure, because there's the 3 nuts on the gear in there are preventing it from pushing all the way in, but you don't want to push it too far in because then it'll be hitting those nuts. Okay, time to install this last seal, the crank seal. And also you want to put a little bit of RTV on this, a very light coat around the edge. Even though it has its own sealant on there, it's always good to just put a little extra. Now that we got that crank seal in, it's time to get the harmonic balancer mount pressed back on. Now, when we put this back on, we got to make sure we're at top dead center. What I did was I put the crank bolt back in, and I put this aluminum chock in between. This way I didn't dead end the bolt into the threads, because you can possibly strip the end out like that because you don't know what the condition of the threads is all the way down deep. So I used that little spacer there, this way it wouldn't bottom out. I cranked the crankshaft clockwise until I got to the compression stroke, which I took out the #1 spark plug. And when you start feeling air coming out of that hole, I have my one finger over the hole while I use my other hand and crank that. Once you start feeling air come out of the hole, I took this bent up piece of wire and I hooked it into the cylinder. And as I turned it the rest of the way, I felt this wire pushing upwards until it got to the top. And then once it starts going down a little bit, you just want to crank it back just a hair, and you get it straight up to the top. And I'm happy I did this, because the original person that did this job first, he didn't have it back at top dead center, and he didn't have that pulley back on there correctly. Now that we got it at top dead center, I actually marked the shaft with a Sharpie, just in case when I try to back this bolt off, I knock the crank out of whack, I can just quickly align it back up. So now you have to align the harmonic balancer mount, the notch on it right here, up to that center crease right there, and then you have to align this arrow back to this one right here, and then everything will be the way it's supposed to be. All right, now that we're reinstalling this, I put a little assembly lube on the outside and on the inside, this way it'll help it slip through the seal and on the crank a little easier. All right, looking good. All right, we got the harmonic balancer mount back onto the crank. The way I did that was I ended up taking this longer bolt, stacking washers on it, made sure I had plenty of threads that were going into the crank, and I pretty much snugged it down and tightened it. It moved a little bit, and then all of a sudden it started binding up real good. So what I ended up doing was taking my lump hammer down there and just keeping the tension on this, and then tapping it in, and then tightening this a little more, tapping it in some more, tightening it, tapping it, tightening it, tapping it, and that's the method I used to get it in. And then once I got that thing on to a good considerable amount pushed in, I ended up taking this one out and I swapped back the original bolt that goes in there, and then I continued on with that turning it and tapping process. Also a cool thing, once you put it on top dead center too, the notch that's on this spline here for the optispark distributor, it actually sets straight up and down as well. So that notch is straight up and down. So you actually just set the notch on the optispark to this spot right here, which is straight up and down. This way when you slide it in, you know it's going in straight. So another 2 days have gone by. When I went to set this in, the optispark distributor, I come to find out that they didn't machine this surface here or this notch sticking out. So this was actually so thick it wouldn't fit between the notch on the timing cover. So I brought it back and we grabbed another one. I made sure that this surface was machined and the notch was machined. So hopefully we don't have any problems putting this one in. That's what happens when you buy the cheap crap. Again, we line up the fatter notch on the splines here with the center notch on there. That's straight up and down. We got to put that center notch, and it slides into the notch on the timing cover. All right, well, I got it set in there, but come to find out, that bolt that was missing here, I actually found the replacement bolt I guess they were going to use. It had fell down into here, and I had seen it, so I grabbed it with my little magnet. Then when I went to put it in, apparently when they took it out, they snapped the whole threads off, and yeah, now I can't thread that one in there. So I got my tap set out. We're gonna tap that hole out to, I guess, the next size bigger bolt. Jeez Louise! So I tapped out that hole. The threads ain't too deep, but I feel like they're deep enough to hold. And then I had to drill out that hole to be a little bit bigger, so the little bit bigger bolt I'm using can go in there. But yeah, I can't use a longer bolt because actually just the threads had snapped off, so I had that little bit of extra room of where the shaft had gone in there to actually thread out. Yeah, if it would have snapped off at the head, I don't know, I'd have been screwed. I don't know what I would have done. Definitely probably would have had to take the timing cover off at that point. But yep, we're gonna slap it on there, put a little thread locker on it, and yeah, hope for the best. Alright, so what I did when I tightened those up, I used the smaller socket wrench. This way you get a good feel on when you hit that tight spot, and you don't have the bigger wrench with all that leverage. You know, kind of throws you off when you're using a bigger wrench, how much leverage you're putting on there. You can easily snap or strip it out. So I used the smaller one. As soon as I felt it bottom out, I just, yeah, snugged it up just a good little bit, and yeah. So originally when I started this project, all I was supposed to do is just change the optispark. That's it, just a distributor. Wasn't supposed to do any more. But then once I got it off, I seen all the oil on the timing cover, so then we decided to do the seals as well. And then after pulling the spark plug out to get it to top dead center, I also realized that the spark plugs are way out. I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be a .50. And yeah, we're past the .60, so I told him, hey, you know, maybe you do plugs. And then after further inspection, one of his spark plug wires was ripped off down there as well, so one of the cylinders wasn't even connected. No wonder this thing was running like crap. So we're doing plugs and wires too. Woo! Man, this is gonna be a long video. Check that out, I got this other spark plug out, and it maxed the little gauge out. So removing the spark plugs on this car really, I think, depends on what kind of headers you got, whether you got the stock ones or a set of aftermarket. These are a set of aftermarket ones. Now these first two were super simple to get out. I just stuck the ratchet wrench, cupped the first one, cupped the second one, and I got them out and back in, no problem. Now the third one, I had to use the socket wrench with the extension on it, and I had to wrap under here, underneath the steering arm, and then I ended up hooking that one and getting it out and then getting it back in. But putting it back in, I couldn't thread it in by hand, so you got to be careful when you're trying to thread it in with the wrench itself, because you know you could possibly strip it. And then that fourth one back there, I actually took it out from underneath, but to get it out I had to chop down one of the spark plug sockets small enough to squeeze in there, and I had to use this ratchet wrench here to get it out. And then when I put it back in, I was able to take this magnet here, magnet it on the socket, guide it in onto the spark plug after screwing it in by hand from underneath, and then putting the ratchet wrench on it from up here, and then I ended up tightening up. But you can probably do it easier from underneath. I just wanted to see if I can get it from up top here. Now the driver's side was the easy side. Now it's time to do the passenger side, which looks a lot difficult. I may have to take the starter out down there and go from underneath to get that middle one out. So again, it may go by the set of headers you may have on this car, whether it's a set of aftermarket or the originals. With these aftermarket ones that are on here, I was able to get all four out from the top just using this ratchet wrench and that socket, spark plug socket that I shortened. So I don't know how it's going to be putting them back in, but I'm about to find out. I do tell you this much, it's really hand cramping to do this, but you know, and you got to get yourself into some awkward positions climbing on the car and from the side, but you know, I did it. It was doable for me. All right, we finally got them back in. Now getting these suckers back in, let me tell you, that back one over there went in super easy. The next one next to it went in pretty easy. This one right here, Yeah, that one was crazy trying to get. Took me literally an hour or so just to get a couple threads threaded in, because I couldn't just find that right angle with the way my both hands are down in this tight little space, all cramped up, not being able to see what I'm doing, only feel. And yeah, it took me about an hour just to catch the threads. And I was also having trouble with the first one over here too, catching the threads, but then I ended up taking the other spark plug out of the box and then tried using that one. I got it to go right in. Then I took the other one I was having trouble with going in there, and I swapped it out for the one, the first spark plug on the other side, and then yeah, I finally ended up getting it in there. But yeah, I got them all in from up top. Now I just gotta shoot up to the local auto parts store, grab those wires that I ordered yesterday, and we can finally put this thing back together. Got the book out, so there's my firing order to my optispark. So now I just gotta get these new set of wires that I just picked up from the local auto parts store on the car. So let's see how much of a freaking pain this is gonna be. Finally, we got the spark plug wires finished up. Now, yeah, the driver's side was super easy, wide open, yeah, no problems at all. But this side, you have to wrap around underneath the power steering pump and in between the AC pump down there, compressor. And then you gotta get it into the little guides and then go underneath that AC line right there. And yeah, then twisty doodah through the exhaust manifold. Woo! All right. So this optispark also came with a new wiring harness. So it connects there, goes down, goes in right there. Then the bolt that holds the dipstick down to the block, it was loose when I took it out, but to tighten it back up, oh my gosh, what a damn headache. Well, learn from my mistakes. When I was doing that little trick I was saying, tapping this on and tightening the nut, when I was tapping it with my lump hammer, I actually bent up and made a crease here to where I couldn't get the harmonic balancer back on the mount. So I had to take my grinder and I got to clean up the edge so I can get it back on. So yeah, put a piece of wood in between the hammer if you're using a lump hammer like I was, or use a dead blow or a rubber mallet. Try it that way. But yeah, learn from my mistakes. So now we got to tighten down the crankshaft balancer hub bolt, which is 74 foot-pounds, and the crankshaft balancer bolts themselves, which is 63 foot-pounds. Alright, we got the new serpentine belt. I'm going to slap this on. There we go. Installed. Finally time to put this water pump back on. So what I did was taking a thin coat of RTV, smearing it on the gasket, and sticking it to the block. This way they're stuck into place and they won't move when I press it on there. Also put a little RTV on the end of each one of these bolts, because I'm pretty sure 2 of these are bolted down into the water jacket, the coolant. So you want to make sure they're sealed off properly so it doesn't leak. Alright, we got that water pump all tightened down. Now let's throw that fan assembly in there and then get that intake on, and we're done. He said he still has a part at home he wants me to change, but maybe I'll do that another time. And that's the coil that's bolted right here below the ICM. Oh man, I'm tired, but finally I got it all back together. The last things I got to do is fill it up with antifreeze and change the oil, which I'm going to do tomorrow. And then we're going to give her a test start and drive her around, make sure she's running good. Alright, we just got the coolant in it. Now we're going to give her a test start, see if she fires up after all this work I did to her. Get it going, and then we're going to change the oil. Yeah, he has a VATS problem with this car. Got to do the VATS bypass trick by leaving the key on for about 10 minutes till the security light goes off, and then you're able to start her. So that's what we're going to do.
Oh yeah, finally got her done. But if y'all feel I did a good job, let me know. If you feel I could have did something different, also let me know. But that's it for this one. Peace and love. Keep it real, and I'll see you on the next one.